Hello people, this is Ryder here to review the Enga Kamen Rider Geats, the 4 Aces and the Black Fox, DX, Oneness, Raise Buckle. So in an interesting turn of events, our movie item this year was actually the campaign item for Gotchard, as you had to pre-order the Gotchard driver to obtain this thing and such, as you can see it right here. So you just have the Oneness buckle like so, then you have the back saying, you know, just the DX Oneness Raise buckle. It actually does acknowledge it from the movie. And yeah, obviously we had to wait a while because I had to wait for the next Geats stream, despite the fact Ryder can already open this on his stream. What the? Which I'm really peeved about. Alright, so here we have the contents out. We have the Oneness Raise buckle itself, and the Kamen Rider Geats Ride Chemi card, to which we will take... I think we will take a look at the buckle first. It's basic for sure, but this is again, whoops, this is how it is. This is how it looks for the most part. The only inaccuracy about it is that the outer portion of this should be silver as opposed to just straight up clear sparkly plastic, but as mentioned in that, this part is sparkly plastic, which is pretty neat. And the design here is pretty cool. Other than that, it's just very red, which I think is I personally think it's a really odd color for this form, but I get they need to make this item as cheap as possible, so I have to let that slide. The back here, first of all, this is where you're going to insert your LR44 batteries, because again, this thing, despite having a slit for a battery cover, it doesn't have batteries. Track here is once again 074, and this is the first of our raised buckles that don't have a QR code spot, because again, it doesn't need one anymore. We're into Gotchard, and this is how the buckle works, but we technically can't go into it unless we, whoops, block the access to it. Which, that's fine, because we needed to reset that anyway, because apparently it wasn't reset. One of the biggest definers about this buckle is that despite this one making sounds, it doesn't have a button. Like, here's Fever. It doesn't have a designated button to know that it's in the driver, which means we have to maneuver it and such. And then for the front of it itself, well, the top, again, it's pretty basic. Same with the bottom. But the inside here, I think, is really a nice detail, because this actually carries over Gotchard elements, as this, basically the inside here is just I'll say the design philosophy of Gotchard with a bunch of arrows going down and such, which I think it's really cool that this is basically, it's mostly a Geats item, but it does contain some Gotchard elements. And speaking, well, before we get to that, speaker grills are there. Before we get to, or speaking with Gotchard elements, here is the Ride Chemi card that is included. This one is the Kamen Rider Geats Ride Chemi card, to which this one's numbered EX and features the 7 Geats riders that appear in the movie: Geats, Magnum Boost, Tycoon Ninja, Nago Beat, Buffa, Zombie, and Punk Jack Monster. I have to specify that they're in forms because Lopo and Kero, for some reason, are in their entry raise forms. As you can see from here, again, we have the name, we have the power level, to which this one's a full rainbow one because it is an EX card. And this here is the Oneness symbol from the core ID, which is pretty neat. Down here, we have the copyright, like so. This one is TCS-010. This one's actually part of the main line, which explains why it's in the DX format in terms of cardstock, so it's not that great. This one is a Legend Ryder type, and it pairs up with the Kamen Rider Geats card that is provided in a bunch of other cards, but we sadly can't take a look at that. And then here's the barcode for it to be read in the multiple devices, and here's the other barcode for the Chemi app. And I want to point this out in particular, this one actually has a gold rim, because apparently I think Oneness is the only one that actually has this gold rim. And then back, it just has the standard steam hopper helmet, and nothing more. The arrow to indicate its direction. And yeah, so basically, as you saw in the beginning, this just simply packed into here, which I don't think was a good idea, but you know, the card sits fine. I actually had a hard time putting it in just because mine is kind of carved, just because I kept it in the panel alongside the other cards from the main toy line. But I think it should be fine. But technically, the only singular sound we can play from the buckle is just by pressing this in once, which is the activation sound, because if we play anything else, it's gonna get into spoilers. So moving on to that. So again, we are gonna take the Geats Oneness Core ID from the last video, and then we also need Boost Mark III, as this is going to be our left section, and obviously the Oneness buckle is going to be our right section. So if you want to do it how Ace does in the movie, you want to activate the buckle. I'll move the card so it's easy for myself. And this is where it gets tricky, because we want to activate this correctly. Because I will explain this. The big issue with using this buckle with just anything else in general is that because of the fact there's no indication of whether or not it's in, that means to basically play, this thing is in a sequence, just like if it's a candy or a gashapon toy. So this thing's in a sequence of 4 sounds. So the next sound after this is the insertion sound / the standby. However, obviously to achieve that, you need to press this, but pressing that while you insert it in the desired driver alongside another item, it'll immediately jump into the it'll transform it. The desired driver will think you're transforming already. So when you actually do attempt to press this again to do the transformation, Boost Mark III is not going to project the correct LEDs, because it's going to project the LEDs as if you're doing a finisher, meaning it's going to be a full 7 LED light, which that is not accurate. So we have to get nifty with this. So you have to make sure you insert, first of all, you have to make sure both of these are inserted, and then second of all, you have to make sure that you activated this before it hits this button right there, so then you can your Boost Mark III side can stay green. And then once you're in the clear of that, obviously, I think I already said, you have to make sure the desired driver actually read both buckles. And then once you're in the clear of that, the desired driver reading the buckles, making sure the Oneness buckle did not press this button, and then making sure that the Boost Mark III side is not a 7 LED color, but instead green fully, then you can insert the card into the Oneness buckle and then complete the transformation. So let's attempt doing that. See, we messed up. Because you're not supposed to have this thing playing sounds. But oh well. And just press this in. And there we have Geats Oneness. And this is definitely, I think this being red and being paired up with Boost Mark III definitely helps out a bit more, just because we have this nice transition from red to white and such. And also, it's just cool to see Boost Mark III actually being utilized as the legs. Though, obviously because of that, it makes up this weird offset of bulk. But at the same time, I really do like how the Oneness buckle kind of seamlessly blends itself with the desired driver, especially this section here, because you can see that these two align themselves and such. And, you know, they both equally poke themselves out of the desired driver and such. But other than that, like, you know, again, the right Chemi card does help bring out color to this look and also the core ID and such. So we only have one soul finisher by pressing this in again. Obviously, because it's in a sequence, we don't have a strike sound. And obviously the sounds that this will produce will be the same. And I say, like, you know, the tangent about the LEDs, the reason why I went so in depth with that is just because obviously the finisher LEDs are go out a lot quicker than the transformation LEDs. Because obviously you don't want the LEDs to die out before this thing finishes and such. That's why I have to kind of explain as to why you have to, of how to like accurately like play around with this and such. But I'm not going to do the boost time and such. But if you want to see the Oneness buckle itself, it's definitely interesting for sure. And if you really want to, you can. Here goes the Shinobi buckle. You can just. It definitely looks interesting two-sided, but yeah, obviously this one doesn't work properly. It's also just because it's not on, but yeah. After that, just move the card, and then yeah, I'm not again. Vision Driver is just going to read it as great, and then we'll only show this off. Whoops. Because we still have a lot of things to show off, so we only show it off in this. And you know, we might as well keep the Oneness. Might as well keep the right Chemi card in. This is really this is the only toy that really does take these toys in fine. Because it actually allows time for this thing to announce, or for these buckles to announce themselves. So I appreciate that. But let's take a look at this dreaded Ride Chemi card. So we're not going to take a look at everything, obviously, but we're going to just take a look at the essentials. So obviously, because it's a Legend Rider Chemi card, let's use the Legend Driver. Okay. That scared me, but yeah, sadly, it doesn't acknowledge itself as Geats Oneness. It just defaults itself as the original Geats card. So we're just going to get normal Magnum boost, which, I mean, for this toy it's fine, but for another one, I think you would know, I think it's kind of disappointing. Put it back in. So there we have that. And then gotta fold this back in. Legend Ride Magnum. I think technically with this card, you would have. I will say you would be able to summon all 7 Riders. So, speaking of summoning, we will use the Spanner version. Because again, he's technically the only one that actually did use a Legend Rider Chemi card. Reads the same as the original Geats card. Should have filmed this first before the riser. As you can tell, it's red and purple. Because obviously the red is the representation of the Ryder, or Kamen Rider, in here, and then purple obviously is just the other main color in this toy. So this just does the same thing as all the other cards. And then to have fun shooting this. This one, I think, does just read the same as, again, the other Geats card. I don't remember how long I've had this sitting, but I think I might have to reactivate this one. Remember how... Okay. Obviously it's a singular card, so we use the Caliber. Obviously it's not an X card despite being an EX, so it's just going to do that sound because it's not a level 10. Obviously this thing is just finishing up doing Steam Hopper's sound muted. And as you can see, the color combinations are... Because obviously, like, I would kind of critique it being, like, why is it red and blue instead of white and blue, but that's just because the original Geats card is white, and its other colors also blue because it's paired up with Jean. So, sort that out. I don't know why this thing started to actually not be mute. It's kind of weird. Ow. I just pinched myself. And then this thing's attacking the X-Gotcha over. Okay. And then we can't, obviously we don't have the Gotcha. We can't show off the Gotcha card until Zriken reviews Phase 0. So we will, in the form of Unity, show off the what? For Unison? And then use this card. Yeah, Unison. Obviously, I'm not going to show both modes, even though he... Oh, if I was covering Gotchard, I would just pick or choose whether or not to only do Steamliner or to do it with Hopper 1. So then... Because if you want to hear both announcements, just watch the demo. But... yeah. Whoops. Like, I guess if you really want to know if it can take the right Chemi cards, of course it can. They're literally the exact same thing. It can take up to 2. But obviously this is not the most ideal way of storing your right Chemi cards, because this thing is incredibly dented, as you can see here, and obviously you can see how scratched up it is up here. So I don't advise you to keep a Ride Chemi card in here, but you know, you can do, I mean, you can put any card in here. I've done it before, but just, I guess, keep it sleeved. Overall, my thoughts on the Oneness raised buckle. I think for the buckle itself, it's definitely interesting. It's something different. It's definitely an interesting way of going at it, of just trying to make something in the cheapest means possible. I think it's kind of weird they just kind of omitted to not have that button, but like, again, if we look past like things like the ride watches or the campaign ride watches, for example, like technically, I mean, those things are even weirder because they're technically on par with like the DX ones. It's just they functioned like the Gashwan and Candy Toy ones, but they were in the build style, or they're in the style of like the buildable ride watches, so they're like this weird hybrid. This thing's like a one-of-a-kind raised buckle, like, because it is on par with like your other raised buckles. It's just that it doesn't have that button for it to know that it's in the driver. So this one you kind of need to maneuver your plate. You need to maneuver your way to play with it properly and such. As in for the Ride Chemi card, it's nice. Like, this is probably one of my favorite ones and such that they have done. It's like, I don't think it ever got explained in the movie, but like, and it's never acknowledged in Gotchard. But other than that, like, I think this is probably like one of the nicer Right Chemi cards that they've done and such. But obviously, like, this is not technically the only way for you to get this specific barcode. They've released a lot of variants of the Geats and Gotchard sounds. Like with the, for example, they did, for the Geats and Gotchard movie, they released this binder, and they released these two cards to do another way for you to do this combo. And then they also released these two cards in the, I don't want to call it UGN, that's not it, but like the Yuchusen issue, because obviously these two are the details of heroes, pictures and such. And they also did an apparel set too that had the Geats Chemis and the other Chemis of the Legend Riders and such. Zyken hasn't opened that one yet, but you have 3 ways, or now we're getting a 4th way too, because in EX2 they are, which I think is cool, they're going full back. Like, the only one of the sensible votes people did, people voted for Geats Oneness to obtain a Legend Rider card, which I think is really cool in a nice full circle way, as this was the first Ride Chemi card ever screened. No, it wasn't. It was Hopper 1. But, you know, this is the first, like, it's not the first. It's just like, it was one of the very early Ride Chemi cards we knew about. So for us to get a new version of this card by the end of the show, I think is really nice. And such. Like, this toy, it's kind of nice in a way, like, of how they managed to balance both Geats and Gotchard with this, especially with Gotchard, with how plentiful you can, or how much plentiful things you can use this card at. So, like, you get a lot of play value with this one set and such. To the point that the Ride Chemi card kind of overpowers the actual buckle itself. But I don't mind that, because again, I still think both of these two balance themselves out. And again, like, I can't really be too upset about the Oneness buckle itself, just because it's a campaign item. I understand they had to cut out, they had to cut some corners just to make it validated in terms as a campaign item, so then production costs can be as low as possible, just so then, you know, they can be able to, I think, produce as much. I don't know if it's in the terms of production or just so then it can be considered like reasonable to send out for free, as opposed to basically making it like, I think them adding that button and possibly painting this silver probably would have made it so that they had to make it like a DX release or something like that. To which, if you didn't get the Gotchard driver, I forgot, did I ever explain that this was the campaign bonus for the Gotchard driver? If you never got the Gotchard driver, you can probably get your hands on the Chinese individual release of this, if you either missed out on it, or if you just don't want to get the Gotcha driver. But that technically means you're still stuck with a Ride Chemi card, but if you don't mind with being stuck with one because of its usage with this buckle, then go for it. I think this does typically go for like $20 at the lowest, but I think that's without the card. I think highest is probably $30. So I will say try to get this for like $22 at best, just because of how just because of its functionality with, or just by itself, and like technically with all the other items. For the most part, you're paying for the value of the playability for both of these things, to which I think mostly for this thing. But then if you are collecting Gotchard, or if you already have a plentiful amount of Gotchard toys, you're definitely going to get a lot out of this card. I think that will have to do with this review. I'm at least glad I'm done with it. Because it's like... because I know people are probably wondering why I didn't cover Gotchard. I think I'll already talk about why those plans had to get changed to last minute, but this is Ryder. I don't know if people buy.